of you who had these ideas before, that Aisha was older than 9, just to defend the Prophet against accusations of indecency and immorality, then let me tell you this now, you are wrong. There is no doubt that Aisha was 9 when the marriage was consummated. Prophet ﷺ had intimacy with Aisha when she was 9. And is that wrong? No. I'll tell you why. In today's world, yes. In today's world, it is, if someone did that today, everyone would be screaming, right? You would say, oh no, that's pedophilia, right? That's how people see it today. Because every single one of you has been conditioned. Every single one of us, we are born in a different age. We have different perceptions. We have different expectations from society. We have never seen a 10-year-old bride. Have you ever seen a 10-year-old bride? Tell me honestly. Have you ever seen a 10-year-old bride? Anyone? If you went to a wedding and you saw a 10-year-old girl sitting in the place of the bride and there's a 40-year-old man or 50-year-old man sitting next to her, getting married to her, what would you think? Honestly, tell me honestly. Sorry? Outrageous. Absolutely immoral, right? Today. You know why? Because all of you were born when? I'm assuming after 1950, yes? 1950? Unless there's someone maybe 40. You're not gonna, I don't think anyone was born before 1900. Anyone? No. If you were, then tell me what you eat. So, all of us were born after the year 1900 when social values were changed. We grew up in an age where this is not seen. It's not normal. Why? Times have changed. Expectations have changed. Now, let me shock you. What you will see now in due course may shock you. Because there were people before 1900, for them, a 10-year-old bride was normal. A 7-year-old bride was normal. Hello, are you listening? A girl at 7 could be married legally. We'll see. So these people who attacked the Prophet ﷺ for doing something he did in the 7th century, which was normal for his time, are completely unaware of Islamic literature, Islamic history, Islamic morality, Islamic ethics. One. Second, they are also ignorant of human history. And we'll see how. Firstly, there is nothing from the Islamic history that the Qurayshis, the arch enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, ever used this as a slur against him, like Islamophobes today. What is the first thing the Islamophobes or the people who attack Islam use against the Prophet? First thing, number one, among many other things. Number one, what is it? Age of Aisha. Your Prophet married a 9-year-old, right? Have you heard this before? Right. So from now on, from today onwards, you can tell them to go to books and get some education. Go and study. Because what you will see now will shock you as well. Believe me, it will shock you. Quraysh. No accusations. No eyelids were batted. The Qurayshis never, they called him a soothsayer or fortune teller. Yeah. Madman. What else? What else did the Qurayshis call him? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They used everything. They tried to tarnish his name by any means. Yes? Right? They uttered poetry about him. But never did any one of them say, why did you marry a 9-year-old girl? Why did you marry? Are you a pervert? None of them said that to him. You know why? Because they had nothing, there was nothing wrong with it. It was a common practice. The one on the top actually wrote a book specifically on the Prophet, to attack the Prophet. This book was published in 1697. When? 1697. And the title of the book is The Nature of Imposture. A Life of Mahomet. Not Muhammad, Mahomet. This is how they spelt Muhammad in that age. So he wrote a book specifically to attack the Prophet, to prove in this book that Prophet Muhammad was an impostor, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was not a true prophet. And what did he say about this issue? He actually defended the Prophet. For marrying a 9 years old, he defended, so a man who is attacking the Prophet in the book, he's defending the Prophet. So this is the title page of pbuh's book. The true nature of imposture fully displayed in the life of Muhammad. Yes? So, is he writing the book to prove that Muhammad is a prophet? What is he writing the book for? To prove the opposite. To prove that Muhammad ﷺ was an impostor. And this book was published in London in 1697. As you can see the date in Roman numerals. Okay? So, on page 52 of his book, this is what he has to say on this issue. Can you read from the top? This is Shakespeare in English. So, he talks about Aisha's marriage with the Prophet. And there, on the third line, he writes, Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr. The Prophet married Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, and Sauda. So after the death of Khadija, he's mentioning this. After the death of Khadija, the Prophet married Aisha and Sauda, the daughter of Zam'a, Sauda bint Zam'a. Okay, and while after he added to them Hafsa, the daughter of Umar, whereby making himself son-in-law to three of the principal men of his party. He did by that alliance the more firmly tie them to his interest. Aisha was then but 6 years old. Are you listening, everyone? This is what it states in the book, page 52. A book written to attack the Prophet. Aisha was then but 6 years old, and therefore he did not bed her till 2 years after. Actually, it was 3 years after. He was wrong there. 2 years after. He did not bed her till 2 years after, when she was full 8 years old. She was 9. For it is usual in those hot countries, right? This is interesting. As it is in all India, over which is in the same clime with Arabia, for women to be ripe for marriage at that age and also bear children the year following. So what is he doing here? He's actually justifying why the Prophet married Aisha at 9. Prepare for the shock. Now what I'm going to read is some quotes from academics. These are the quotes from historians dealing directly with this issue, how past societies worked pre-19th century, just over 100 years ago. Because you have all, we have confirmed that all of you have been born after 1900. What was happening before 1900? When, if people went to a wedding and they saw a 10-year-old bride, they wouldn't call the police. They would give a present to the bride and wish her well. Okay? How do we know this? Look. Margaret Wade Labarge, in her book, A Medieval Miscellany, she states on page 52, it needs to be remembered that many medieval widows were not old. Important heiresses were often married between the ages of 5 and 10 and might find themselves widowed while still in their teens. Professor Richard Wortley and Professor Stephen Smallbone, in the book Internet Child Pornography, Causes, Investigation and Prevention, they state in medieval and early modern European societies, in medieval, and now you will understand why those authors I mentioned earlier, European authors, had nothing to say on this. In fact, they were defending the Prophet. You know why? This. In medieval and early modern European societies, the age of marriage remained low, with documented cases of brides as young as 7 years, although marriages were typically not consummated until the girl reached puberty. No problem. People would go to weddings where they would see a 10-year-old bride. Okay? This was going on throughout history up to the 19th century. All humans were doing it. Right? So jump back to the 7th century, anachronistically, and use today's standard to judge a man in the 7th century is called anachronism. In history, it's called anachronism. Right? It is unfair, it's unjust. Richard A. Posner and Catherine B. Silbaugh. They write on page 44 of their book, A Guide to America's Sex Laws. The law governing the age of consent has changed dramatically in the United States during this century. Most states codified a statutory age of consent during the 19th century, and the usual age was 10 years old. Scottish law before 1900, by the way. By the law of Scotland, a woman cannot contrabere sponsalia before her age of 7 years. So she cannot consent to a marriage. But when she's 7, she can consent to it. She can get married when she's 7, right? According to the Scottish law. But by common law, persons may marry at any age. And upon such marriage, the wife shall be endowed if they attain the age of 9 years, or whatsoever age her husband be, but not before the age of 9. So husband can be any age. The girl has to be 9, right, in order to be able to be married completely. Joseph Paul Cortez, in his book Opposing Hate Speech, states, page 85, in 1962, the American Law Institute recommended that the legal age of consent to sex, that is, the age below which sex is defined as statutory rape, be dropped in every state to age 10. This was 1962, by the way, right? In fact, until mid-1960, the legal age of consent in Delaware was 7. As late as 1960, when Elvis Presley was, right? Jailhouse Rock. When was it? When did it come out? 1962? Or 1957? I think 57, right? Yeah? Can you imagine? In Delaware, in one of the American states, the age of marriage was 7. 1960. So how do people attack the Prophet ﷺ for getting married to a 9-year-old who had reached puberty at the time? That was their norm. So why do we feel so ashamed and go on the back foot and start changing our hadith literature?